In this movie, I'll introduce you to the Navigator panel, which allows you to both zoom and pan the image using a thumbnail. And while a lot of people dismiss the Navigator panel, it's actually a really great tool, especially when you're working in the full screen mode. And here's why. Let's say I switch to the full screen mode by pressing the F key twice in a row. And by the way, you can't just double tap the F key. You have to just press it and then press it again, because otherwise Photoshop is going to ignore that second press. And then I want to fit the image on screen, so I'll press Control-0 or Command-0 on the Mac. Problem is that I've got all this black pasteboard surrounding the image. Let's say that's not what I want. I want to exactly fill the screen with the image. If I press Control+ or Command+ on the Mac, I still don't quite fill the screen, as you can see evidenced by this black over here on the left and right-hand sides. And then if I press Control+ or Command+ again, I'm too far in. So how do I exactly control my zoom, given that I no longer have access to that little zoom value in the lower left corner of the window? Well, as you may expect from the title of this movie, the answer is the Navigator panel. So I'm going to press the F key to switch back to the standard mode, and then I'll go up to the window menu, which offers access to every single panel, starting with 3D and ending with tool presets that's available to you inside Photoshop. And right there is Navigator. Go ahead and choose that command, and you'll add the Navigator panel to this column of options over here on the right-hand side of the screen. Now notice that we have this little thumbnail view of the image. If you want it to be larger, you can just drag from one of the corners like so, and you can actually make this thumbnail as large as you like. Also notice that we have this red rectangle, which represents our view of the image. So if I go ahead and zoom farther in by pressing Control+ or Command+ on the Mac, you can see that that rectangle gets smaller because we're seeing less of the image at a time. Then you can drag that rectangle around to focus on a different portion of the image like so. You also have the option of pressing the Control key or the Command key on the Mac, in which case you get a zoom tool, and you can go ahead and marquee a different section of the image, either a tiny section to zoom in or a large section to zoom out. Plus, you have this slider bar down here, so you can drag the slider triangle to the left to zoom out or to the right to zoom in. You've got the big mountain over here to zoom in. You've got the little mountain to zoom out. That's incremental, though. Notice when I click on the big mountains, I zoom to 200% in this case. And when I click on the little mountains, I zoom back to 100%. So in other words, all those controls are great, but they're not quite exactly what we're looking for. What I'm going to do is reduce the size of the Navigator panel, and then I'll go ahead and hide it from view. And you do that by clicking on this little double triangle icon right there. And that'll tuck that panel back in. And it's represented, incidentally, by this little ship steering wheel. And you can hover over it and you'll see the word Navigator. So that gives you an indication of how you get back to the panel just by clicking on that icon. And then you can click on the icon again, incidentally, to hide it. All right, now I'm going to shift to the full screen mode. And incidentally, just by way of a meta tip here, you can press the F key twice in a row, or you can go backwards by adding the Shift key. So if I press Shift F, I will return from the standard mode to the absolute full screen mode. And then I'll press Control-0 or Command-0 on the Mac to zoom out. All right, now we want to exactly fill the screen with the image. You do that by hovering over the right-hand side in order to bring back your panels, and then go ahead and click on that Navigator icon to bring up the Navigator panel, and then move your cursor into the panel in order to do your work. Keep your cursor inside there, incidentally, because if you move it out, then those panels are going to disappear on you. In which case, go ahead and once again hover over the right-hand side of the screen. Your Navigator panel should come right back up, and then you can go ahead and double-click on that zoom value right there, which works just like the zoom value that you normally see in the lower left corner of the screen, which means I can enter a value, such as 30%, let's say, and press Shift-Enter or Shift-Return on the Mac in order to apply the value and keep it active so long as you keep your cursor inside of the panel area. Don't move it out because, once again, if you do, that Navigator panel will disappear. I'm not zoomed in far enough, however, so I'll press the up arrow key, let's say a couple of times in a row, and then I'll press Shift-Enter or Shift-Return on the Mac to apply that value. I'm still not far enough in, so instead what I'm going to do is press and hold the Control key or the Command key on the Mac so I get that little scrubby cursor, and I'll go ahead and very carefully drag over to the right until the image fills the screen absolutely, which for me happens at 36%, at which point point, you can go ahead and move your cursor outside the panel, and all the panels will disappear. And now I'll just scroll up a little bit using the scroll wheel on my mouse, and I've got the image exactly where I want it. So at the very least, the next time you hear someone dismiss the Navigator panel, you'll know that it's the best tool possible for exactly controlling the display of your image in the full screen mode.